Good evening and welcome to Woodstock City Council for Thursday, November the 16th. We have a few delegations tonight and some other business, so we'll get right to work. Any disclosures of conflict of interest? Seeing none. Any disclosures of new business? Matters arising from the minutes? The minutes. Councillor Shapton?
Councillor Tate.
Councillor Tate?
Moved by Councillor Tate, second by Councillor Accioni, that the minutes of the regular meeting of Woodstock City Council held on November 2nd, 2017 be adopted.
Thank you. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. Next item on the agenda is delegations, and tonight we have Brian Smith representing Oxford People Against the Landfill. Welcome.
Good evening, and thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to talk to you this evening. Apologies to the Mayor if some of this sounds a bit redundant on the event that happened on Sunday. And I have provided you all with a lovely early Christmas present that you're welcome to wear. If you're wanting the billboard size so you can do the sandwich thing, I'll leave this with you at the end of the evening, so you're welcome to that as well. We really do appreciate at OPO the long-term support this council has shown in our fight for the future that our community approves of. The community's sustainability plan has engaged many people in describing what we need to protect and what we need to do for the future. And here we are in a sample of it. We're in a great historic building within view of another great historic building, the museum. Things that make the downtown look a beautiful place to walk, to shop, to eat. They valorize the landscape and they valorize our history. We also know that the future of Woodstock's industrial base is intended to grow with high-value vehicles at Toyota, which is, by the way, a zero-waste manufacturer, and with the insertion of new industry into the economic prosperity of Oxford in the area, of Woodstock in the area, sorry. These are things which the community supports and approves. This is the dairy capital, and it should not become a dump capital. I know it seems just a bit strange that we delegate to ask that you have the right to approve. I'm fairly sure that you approve of yourselves already. And I know that the people of Woodstock approve of you. On the other hand, there's a current law in Ontario that allows local decisions made by you in the best interests of the community be overruled. Despite a letter from the former Minister of Municipalities, Mr. Ted McMeekin, telling us that our community sustainability plan is a good thing, there remain ways that his ministry, the Ministry of Municipalities, and the Ministry of the Environment can impose projects on our community that we don't approve of. And we believe that communities deserve a bigger say in their future that we have the right to approve. Here's a sample of what our community cannot approve of. Toronto has a significant and growing garbage problem. Toronto's population is expected to grow to close to 7.5 million people by the year 2030. That's 1 million more people than today, most of them in high-rise condos where the only built-in solution is to dump garbage down the chute. Once it's in the bin below, we've seen that the easiest solution, in Toronto's view at least, is to ship it down the road westward into Oxford County and other parts of southwestern Ontario. I'd point out that all of those dumps in southwestern Ontario are upwind from Woodstock. We're downwind. The communities of Oxford County are not responsible for solving Toronto's waste management problems. Toronto is. Oxford County's zero waste strategy is proof that our communities are focused on solving our own waste management issues. Our recycling rates grow, the garbage load shrinks, the James Street yard will expand the diversion, the county waste management site will outlive its projected closure dates and perhaps our need for it at all. Toronto should do the same, work at solving their own problem. I think we might even offer, once again, to help them solve the problem in Toronto. The motion we bring to you has a rationale that will not strike you as surprising. The Clean Water Act has a phrase in it about any reasonable person, and we firmly believe that it's reasonable that the people nearest the point of impact of a decision, the people who will live with the results, should have the right to approve the project in the form they wish, or in the case of something destructive, the right to reject it as socially unacceptable, let alone scientifically unfeasible. When Bill 139 was before the legislature, and I hope you all read that and watched the CPAC channel at night to put you to sleep, that bill would have contained a clause much like the one in the motion that's before you this evening. All three parties at Queen's Park agreed to that notion that is now in the motion. Any reasonable person would then assume that it would pass, but it didn't. Draw from that any conclusions you want about Queen's Park. But we're told there is room that the right to approval could become law outside of Bill 139 as a separate piece of legislation. The Environmental Commissioner of Ontario has told the government that the law needs to be changed and can be changed. The Environmental Commissioner has also told Queen's Park that Toronto is Ontario's garbage problem. Apparently, Queen's Park needs some more encouragement from you to do and to vote into law something that they already apparently agree on. And we agree that communities have the right to approve of projects or to disapprove of them. On Sunday, November the 12th, at a rally, many people added their names to the call for our community's right to approve. They did so by signing a petition about that, headed to Queen's Park. They did so by signing a petition to the federal government, asking them to intervene. They did so by letters citing science, reason, and even other government documents that are already law that say that there should be a community right to approve, and in the case of the dump, we wouldn't. By passing this motion, you'd add your voice to theirs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions of council? Councillor Lauder.
Through the mayor, I don't have a question. I just want to thank you and all your group for all the hard work that you're putting into this, and hopefully someone will listen soon. So
Well, someone has, and thank you. And thank you all.
Thank you very much. Our next delegation is Julie McRoberts regarding landlord registry and bylaw officer services. Welcome.
Good evening, Your Worship and Councillors. I'm here to discuss the establishment of a landlord registry for the region to not only combat against apathetic landlords, but for the protection of tenants, the protection of responsible landlords, city employees' times, homeowners, and the region as a whole. As I am certain you are aware, new regulations are in place which has made homeownership a greater task, especially for individuals starting off in their professional careers. While these new regulations are to protect consumers and the real estate market, they also force many families and individuals into the need for rentals. As I have personally experienced during my days of searching for a home, the unfortunate reality is that many landlords abuse this need for living space and profit from the decaying facilities while reselling these fixer-uppers in the price range of $200,000 and higher. From missing basement steps to decaying garages, I was astonished to see the prices for such decrepit facilities and horrified to learn of people renting in such conditions and being advertised as chattel to the property. And despite these unfavorable adjectives I give to these houses, the landlord wins either way. The house is decaying, the landlord sells. The tenants are desperate, often uneducated of the bylaws, and incapable of navigating their way through the tribunal, which demands of an application fee to begin the process of fighting for a better living condition. Most recently, I have found myself in a state of perpetual frustration as my newly built semi-detached home has now become resident to an unruly tenants who have required 7 calls to City Hall and 8 calls to Woodstock Police within 29 days of their residency for domestic disturbances, excessive noise, and music as early as 6 a.m. and as late as 11 p.m. Trespassing and garbage extending from the front lawn onto the main road, and an absent landlord who has made his apathetic views of his investment known by having his contact information encrypted in a circular loop back to the residence he does not live in. Police resources had to be used to obtain even a phone number of this neighbor of mine. With a registry in place, this landlord could have been contacted immediately about the situation, such as the garbage extending onto the main street, the continued disturbances in the early mornings, and the alleged sticky doors which these tenants blamed when the police requested again for their respectful use of these facilities. The the city could also implement bylaws which would penalize landlords who continue to take an apathetic view about their tenants' behavior through a system of tiered expectations. For example, with the garbage situation, the first course of action should be to contact the landlord and possibly have photo evidence of the problem for the landlord. The landlord would then be expected to follow up with their tenants and the citizens who initiate the complaint. Should the landlord not act or the tenants not respect the wishes of the landlord, a second attempt to contact the landlord with a complaint sent to the bylaw officers, including the initial complaint to the landlord. The landlord or a representative for the landlord should then have to visit the property to remedy the situation. Should the city or local bylaw enforcement facilities be used to remedy the situation, then not only should penalties be placed upon the tenants, but the landlord if the landlord did not act upon the original complaints. If a landlord did act upon the original complaints, such as contacting the tenants, arriving to the property to clean up the mess only for the tenants to continue the problem, then that landlord should not incur any penalties, but should benefit from the evidence of the city about the abusive nature of the tenants should the landlord require legal action against these tenants. Landlords who are responsible should not be penalized but protected by the city through the need of the city's resources to solve the problems. On November 2nd, 2017, City Council heard from Catherine DeBoer about a proposal to install surveillance cameras to curb the illegal dumping of waste. I would propose establishing this registry and the new bylaws before going to such extremes. The establishment of this registry and bylaw placing more responsibility on landlords would hopefully provide a warning to these unhygienic individuals of the city's desire to take the matter more seriously and potentially save the city money from needing to install such cameras. Should these new measures have no effect upon illegal dumping, at that time should council consider installation of cameras along with an increase in penalties for the illegal dumping to offset the cost and need for such actions. With such potential penalties in place and the tiered system of complaint, the desired outcome would be a decrease in the need to communicate with the bylaw department. However, given the potential for an increase in complaint, more staff would be required and could be sustained through the enforcement of these penalties and establishment of a fee for registration. Reasoning for the fee is landlords are benefiting from the city resources, but then do not contribute to the city's economic structure except through property taxes, as many of these landlords reside outside of city limits. The landlords also benefit from exemptions of capital gain taxation by evicting the tenants, residing in the property for a brief period, and claiming primary residency once more, despite previously profiting from rent. Also, since these landlords are hindering buyers who are not interested in engaging in such a business transaction as renting, but are interested in owning the home, and being within the community, the landlord should incur a cost for preventing others from being able to obtain these homes for ownership. The fee should reflect the age of the house. Older houses would benefit from a landlord-tenant relationship, as the maintenance of a house may be out of the capabilities of the tenant, but much better managed by a capable landlord. Newer houses should not be poached by landlords, especially in these times of frightening housing markets, driving Torontonians to the region, and stiffer mortgage rules. Such acts of poaching can be prevented by placing higher fees on landlords who wish to rent newer builds, which do not require as much maintenance as older homes. Newer homes are for the benefit of first-time home buyers, young families, and the improvement of the community. While I can understand the desire for families who live just beyond the financial reach of such a home in one of these newer neighborhoods, the neighborhood needs protection from landlords who are simply looking to profit from the current housing situation, as do builders who are building these homes only for them to be used as a means of making profits for the landlords. It is my understanding also that the city of Woodstock was interested in housing a satellite campus for the University of Ottawa. Housing for students is a critical topic for students when it comes to choosing schools. The high rent prices in Toronto is a frequent topic. I would know this as an alumnus of the University of Toronto. Campus housing is only guaranteed for first-year students. For those who would seek housing off campus, those students want to feel safe and secure. They do not want absent landlords looking for easy money. Students are dealing with the stress of assignments, exams, lectures, tutorials, and labs. They're not going to be satisfied with a house which is collapsing around them and a landlord who is perpetually coming up with excuses as to why they're not doing repairs. Woodstock would have encountered numerous problems and potentially a failed academic facility had the reputation of the fleeting housing occurred within the city. Quickly on to topic 2. It was regarding my encounter with a bylaw officer named Brian Young on October 19th, 2017. I had initiated a noise complaint, and his response to me was that nothing was going to be done because there were only 2 staff members, and that coming here today was going to be useless because City Council was going to do nothing. Well, as a citizen of this city, I would like to put in my opinion that I hope Brian Young is provided assistance from City Council and that in the future he feels more at ease when it comes to the handling of city councilors with his proposals, as he seems to have a very, very negative outlook, which can be detrimental to other citizens coming forward and voicing their concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. And questions of council. Councillor Tate?
Just a comment. Very well done. A lot of research went into it, and thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you.
Further questions of council? Councillor Shapton?
Your Worship, just a quick question through to Julie. Are you aware of other municipalities that have similar programs that you're outlining in this?
London, Ontario definitely has a landlord registry. In fact, when I spoke to the tribunal, they specifically said many college and university cities have such registries in place, which is why I wanted to mention the application that the city had with the University of Ottawa. So yes, mostly college cities have this in place.
Councillor Shapton?
Just continuing on, more of a comment. Thank you for that, and obviously an extremely well-researched presentation. So thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And if council has no objection, before we move on to our capital budget delegation, if we could consider these 2 matters. All right. So a consideration on the first delegation. Councillor Talbot.
Whereas municipal governments in Ontario do not have the right to approve landfill projects in their communities, but have authority for making decisions on all other types of development, and whereas this outdated policy allows private landfill operators to consult with local residents and municipal councils, but essentially ignore them, and whereas proposed Ontario legislation Bill 139 will grant municipalities additional authority and autonomy to make decisions for their communities, and whereas municipalities already have exclusive rights for approving casinos and nuclear waste facilities within their communities, and further that the province has recognized the value of municipal approval for the siting of power generation facilities, and whereas the recent report from Ontario's Environmental Commissioner has found that Ontario has a garbage problem, particularly from industrial, commercial, and institutional, ICI, waste generated within the City of Toronto, where diversion rates are as low as 15%, and whereas unless significant efforts are made to increase recycling and diversion rates, a new home for this Toronto garbage will need to be found as landfill space is filling up quickly, and whereas municipalities across Ontario are quietly being identified and targeted as potential landfill sites for future Toronto garbage by private landfill operators. And whereas other communities should not be forced to take Toronto waste, as landfills can contaminate local watersheds' air quality, dramatically increase heavy truck traffic on community roads, and reduce the quality of life for local residents. And whereas municipalities should be considered experts in waste management, as they are responsible for this within their own communities and often have decades worth of in-house expertise in managing waste, recycling, and diversion programs. And whereas municipalities should have the exclusive right to approve or reject these projects and assess whether the potential economic benefits are of sufficient value to offset any negative impacts and environmental concerns. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Woodstock calls upon the Government of Ontario and all political parties to formally grant municipalities the authority to approve landfill projects in or adjacent to their communities prior to June 2018. And further, that in the case of a two-tier municipality, the approval be required at both the upper tier and affected lower tier municipalities. And further, that the City of Woodstock encourage all other municipalities in Ontario to consider this motion, calling for immediate provincial action.
Thank you, and seconded by Councillor Accioni. Discussion? Good job, Councillor Talbot, getting through that. You've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. And on the next item, Councillor Tate.
I move that Woodstock City Council refer the request from Julie McRoberts regarding a landlord registry to staff for a report.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Shapton. Discussion? Councillor Shapton?
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, just following up on Julie's report there, I think as the city continues to find economic boom in our real estate market, this is only going to enhance the problem with difficult landlords and other problems in the city. So I think referring it to a staff report would certainly be beneficial. Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. And our next delegation is the CAO, David Creary, as well as the Director of Administrative Services, Patrice Hilderly, regarding the 2018 capital budget presentation.
Thank you, Your Worship. We're pleased to present Council with the 2018 capital budget and the 2019 to 2022 capital forecast. I will provide a brief overview of the plan. Mrs. Hilderly will follow with a brief overview of funding the plan. Just a reminder that while you have a projects list that covers 5 years of projects before you, we are only seeking approval for projects that are in 2018. There's a scheduled council meeting for Tuesday, November 21st, so this coming Tuesday, 5:15 p.m. here in council chambers, where council will review in more detail the capital program. And we have a second date on Thursday should additional time be needed. The budget meetings are of course open to the public, and we always have lots of seating. The budget and the presentation will be uploaded to the city's newly redesigned website tomorrow. And we will endeavor to upload the video recording of council's budget meeting shortly after the Tuesday meeting. So on to the budget. There is a new approach, just to briefly go through for council, to the capital budget. The projects in 2018 are divided now into a core capital budget and a supplemental projects list capital budget. Council will be asked to consider approval of the core capital budget at the regular meeting in December. The supplemental list of capital projects will be brought to council in early 2018 for council's consideration of approval, subject to the availability of funding. So the core capital projects are shown in the capital budgets as per normal. They're just in the normal budget. The supplemental projects, which I believe we identify them as B projects, they're on your last page of the capital budget. So if you want to see a list of what those supplemental projects, just flip to the last page. So this is the first time we've actually had to take this approach, and it's simply a result of difficulty in financing the whole program. Well, why? Primarily, there's been a significant increase in the capital budget in recent years. If we look at the last 3 years, the average annual capital budget's been about $22 million in the last 3 years. If we cast back 5 years, the average 3-year spend in 5 years ago was below 15 million. So it's indicative of a significant increase in capital budgets. So as a result, the plan is just simply that much more difficult for Mrs. Hilderly to finance. And financing the whole plan raises concerns for financial sustainability for the forecast budget. So into the budget. The 2018 core capital budget is just shy of $19 million. When you take out the sewer and water projects, which are funded by county sewer and water rates, we call it our own purpose core capital budget. It's about $16.5 million. On the supplemental projects capital budget list, we have about $970,000 of projects. If you add the two together, the core capital plus the supplemental projects, we're about $3 million lower than 2017 capital budget, which is it's a modest capital budget compared to what we've been seeing, and it's a good start. But looking forward, the 2019 to 2022, we have $76 million in that 4-year period. Significant pressures in capital spending continue going forward. In 2018, there's quite a number of pre-approved projects. Council approved the phase 2 of the HVAC, heating, ventilating, and air conditioning systems as part of the community complex refrigeration plant project in the amount of $740,000 last year. That pre-approval is just quite simply because it was very difficult. The HVAC is interconnected to the refrigeration plant now, and phasing it was extremely difficult. Council pre-approved an additional spend for the emergency services radio. This is the third tower, the integration of the third tower into the emergency services radio system. Norwich Avenue area flooding remediation, $230,000. This is for the surge pond to be built off of James Street. And the LED streetlight conversion council approved the $1,000 of OSIF formula-based funding to the 2017 streetlight conversion project. So these are all shown in the 2018 plan, but they have pre-approval. This capital budget is very much a maintain and replace capital program. Normally our capital budgets are about 60 to 70% maintain and replace, with the balance being new projects and growth-related projects. This budget is roughly 87% maintain and repair, so it's very heavy on maintain and repair. The number and the value of the projects that are growth-related or new are much smaller than we've been seeing in recent years. If we just package all the road projects together into one lump sum, we got a comparison here just to show council what council approved in 2017 compared to 18. So we're flatlining road resurfacing, carrying forward at the same $1,440,000 level. Slight increase in surface asphalt. You're seeing a dip in road reconstruction. That's primarily because we're not doing alley reconstruction in 2018. We did alleys in 2017. It caused an aberration, a little jump in the annual spend. Alley, some would argue, isn't really a road because there's not a lot of traffic on it, but it's still classified as a road. So for all intents and purposes, we think our road program is similar to prior year spends. We continue to have some significant stormwater flood mitigation and stormwater quality projects in the capital plan. Council's pre-approved the Norwich Avenue, so we have another $230,000 in the 2018 program. The biggest project, single biggest project that you have in the 2018 plan is the Southside Pond Cleanout and Sediment Forebay. This project has been in the capital forecast for quite a number of years. The environmental assessment was completed in the last term of council, and we have been hoping and applying for federal provincial funding programs in the hopes of helping to defray this cost, and we just simply haven't been successful. This project doesn't have any of the flood mitigation that you have in some of our other projects. There's a big maintenance piece to this because we're just really cleaning the pond out from 30 years, 25 years anyways, of sediment buildup that has just been deposited in the pond. So we're thinking it's going to be very difficult to find a federal or a provincial funding program for this. So we're suggesting that it's time to bring this forward. Alongside this, we have a couple of unusual projects in the capital program. This one has a fish ladder component to it, so a little unusual, but that came out of the environmental assessment. So there's also a bridge rebuild associated with this separate project, but the bridge that goes just upstream of the dam over the channelized portion is proposed to be rebuilt, and so it's all kind of wrapped up for 2018. In the 2019 to 2022, we've got $5.5 million to address the Warwick area flooding recommendations that came out of that environmental assessment. That dollar figure is significantly higher than what was estimated during the study, and so this is for the construction of significant storm surge underground chambers under the road and under the school property to address flooding remediation. Council's approved a number of projects that came out of that study already that have helped improve the area significantly. These are the final recommendations in that study, and the engineering department is actually proposing to reopen that study in 2019 to take a look at whether or not there are other ways that we can address this issue with less cost. Building related projects, we've got the Fanshawe College re-roof. Unfortunately, that's in our program. The building is technically owned by the city of Woodstock, and we're contractually required to maintain the building envelope, which includes the roof. Fanshawe has served notice that the roof is at end of life and they would like it re-roofed. So we have it in the program, but I do not believe that Fanshawe actually wants to go ahead with this. They'd rather do an expansion. If you do an expansion, that roof has to come off no matter what. We've been waiting for a meeting with Fanshawe, and we hope that we can find a way to grow that school rather than maintain that school. And that would be the ultimate objective. The library masonry restoration, we have that on the books. There's still significant projects in the arenas, community complex, civic center arena. We've spent $2 million at the complex with the mechanical and refrigeration system. There's another $2 million coming at us for civic arena and complex. These buildings are just reaching that age where they need new roofs. They need, in the case of civic arena, it needs a new floor and new boards. And so it's we're not done yet. There's a lot more to do. In parks and recreation in 2018, these are some of the growth-related projects that are in the planned park development. Shannon Larson Park, the Halifax, I don't believe it's named yet, Springbank area extension, that park. The Petula Woodlot Trail development, we have some netting and trees and the completion of the concession at Cowan Fields this year. And in Burgess and Standard 2 Park, I think it's year 4 of the plan for this area. And another strange project, Parks will be building a hibernaculum. And I don't think we've ever done that before. So I had to ask what it was too, and I'm not going to even, Chris, you bring Chris on Tuesday maybe, or Brian can answer it on Tuesday. Lions Pool Basin and mechanical. Lions Pool has been a project that's bounced through the forecast years in our budget. It's been in the budget, it's been out of the budget. We believe that currently, with the amount of water use that we have, that it is not an asset that can be surplused based on current usage. And the pool liner and the piping and the mechanical system is well past end of life. And if that facility is to remain open, it simply needs work. And so we have allocated 1.1 million in 2019. The B list is a number of projects. This totals $970,000. I won't go through them. For the most part, these are all maintain and replace projects. They are all they're certainly all valid. There's nothing about them that if we don't proceed with them, they're going to go away. They're all maintain and replace for the most part. So they are all. We're not dodging anything. We're simply delaying this. These are the projects that we will consider in early 2018, subject to availability of funding. If council wishes any of these to be moved on to the core project list, we can certainly attempt to finance them. And as council reviews, if there's any in the core project list, they can certainly be shifted to the B list as well. And I will turn it over to Mrs. Hillerly.
Thank you. I'm talking about the financing of the capital program, and I should point out that the financing of this program is based on our typical contributions to our reserves and reserve funds and the reserve for capital projects. So it does not commit council to any additional financing in the revenue fund budget, this program. So as David has said, we're $19 million, about $3.5 million of that is coming from our capital out of revenue, another $7 million from our reserves and reserve funds, $3.3 million is debt, 2.4 is funded by the county, sewer and water rates, and there are grants available such as gas tax, and it's about $2.5 million that are funding a number of the projects as well. It should also be noted in the program that we applied for an OSIF grant for one of the road projects, $549,000. We have not received confirmation whether we've got that grant or not. So at this point in time, it's being funded from the capital out of revenue reserve. So as Mr. Curry discussed, we have our B-list projects. The largest source of financing for these is the reserve for capital projects, $643,000. We've got another $215,000 from the reserve for municipal buildings, and we're looking at development charges for the public works of another $112,000. So that's how we would propose that we would finance at $970,000, depending on the results and the review of our reserves and their positions at the year end. We have a couple of hydro funds. We have the Hydro Legacy Fund, and that's the proceeds of the sale of Woodstock Hydro that are invested in perpetuity. We're not proposing that we use any funds from that legacy this year. We were pretty ambitious, thinking we could probably draw that fund down by $800,000 in investment earnings, and with the change in the markets, we are not able to do that this year. We certainly will be able to bring in the $400,000 that we use in our operating budget to replace the dividend that we got from Woodstock Hydro. What we're hoping to do is build up our retention reserve and start using that money moving forward a year after the fact, rather than in the year we're earning it. The Hydro Reserve Fund is currently about $3 million, and we're proposing that that funding be used for the 2018 street light conversion. Debt. The end of 2018, and based on this budget, we estimate that our outstanding debt will be $22 million. That's higher than we've seen in a long time, but given the type of the projects that we have been financing is certainly expected, and we certainly can manage that. Our debt limit right now is $14,251,000, and that's the limit that's given to us by the province every year based on our financial statements. This means we could sell and pay off $110 million worth of debt over a 10-year period, or $177 million worth of debt over a 20-year period. And we're not recommending that we go anywhere near that, obviously. The 2018 projects financed with debt are the roads, $900,000, and of course the Southside Pond cleanout, and this almost $2.5 million. The $900,000 program will be 10-year debt, and the $2 million program will be sold over 20 years if they're approved. So the financing challenges, and this is the last slide. As Mr. Curry has discussed, we're very concerned about our ability moving forward to finance the rest of the program. And despite extensive use of debt, the program that you see before you for 5 years is underfunded by about $5.25 million. Now that's excluding any development programs. And as you can see, at the end of 2022, we're projecting some significant shortfalls in the reserves, such as the capital projects reserve, $2 million, fire equipment reserve, $1.2 million, and development charges, public works, $1.9 million. Now, of course, the projects will change and it will be refined as we start moving forward. And there will be a number of things that will be presented to council for options. We can issue additional debt. We can postpone projects. We can increase our contributions to the reserves and the reserve funds, or increase the contribution for capital out of revenue, both of which directly impact the levy. And while we're in good shape for 2018, we just want to remind council that moving forward, we're going to have to do some future financial planning and refining our projects in order to be able to pay for the program. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of council? Okay, we'll save those for the special budget meetings. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is consideration of planning reports. Councillor Petter.
I move that Woodstock City Council approve the zoning bylaw amendment file ZN 81718 for lands described as Part Lot 14, Concession 1 in the City of Woodstock to rezone the lands from Special General Industrial Zone M32 to Special General Industrial Zone M3 SP to permit a motor vehicle rental facility on the subject lands.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Shapton. Welcome, Ms. Asher.
Thank you. So the first application for a zone change is for 1280 Seagrave Road, and the applicant has applied to rezone the lands from Special General Industrial Zone M3-2 to an amended Special Industrial Zone M3 Special to permit a motor vehicle rental facility to operate on the lands. The property currently contains an 8-unit industrial plaza, and the applicant's proposing that the proposed use will occupy one of the existing units in the plaza. The policy framework for industrial areas in Woodstock, as contained in the county official plan, is designed to ensure that sufficient lands are made available to provide opportunities for industrial growth and development, and therefore limit other uses that can be located in other areas of the city or that may interfere with the day-to-day operations of industrial uses. It's the opinion of staff that the proposed motor vehicle rental facility is not a use that is contemplated by the Bisham Park Industrial Park policies. The intent of the industrial park policies is to establish a variety of industrial uses with limited showroom and retail space, in addition to permitting a limited number of service commercial type uses that provide a service directly related to the surrounding industrial uses. In our opinion, the motor vehicle rental facility is a use that will serve the broader public and would be more appropriately located in service commercial designated areas of the city. In this particular instance, planning staff do not believe the establishment of the motor vehicle rental facility as proposed on the subject lands maintains the general intent of the provincial policy statement or the official plan. In light of the foregoing, it's the opinion of staff that the proposed zone change is not consistent with the policy direction of the PPS or the official plan and should not be supported.
Thank you. Questions of council. Councillor Petter.
Before I get in trouble with the clerk, I just want to add, and further, that comments received from the public were reviewed and were considered in council's decision to deny or approve the application, because I know she was going to yell at me. The second part is Tuesday night we had quite a discussion on this, and with all due respect to the planning department, after most of the councilors had gone and looked at this particular business that's been operating since April. Absolutely no problems with it, adequate parking, and although it doesn't totally fit within the framework of the zoning that's presently there, I think most of council thought that it was a good acquisition to change that and not hinder this business. Most of their business is done within blocks of their building, and we didn't see much reason for it not to go through. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the complete motion. All those in favor? Carries unanimous. And our next item, Councillor Lauder.
I'll move that Woodstock City Council advise Oxford County that the city supports a 2-year extension to draft approval of the City of Woodstock subdivision 32T-09003 for lands described as part lots 13 and 14, concession 1, Blandford, in the City of Woodstock to December 31st, 2019.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Accioni. Ms. Haschler.
Thank you. The city has initiated a request to extend approval of an industrial and commercial draft plan of subdivision for a period of 2 years on lands municipally known as 1490 Devonshire Avenue. The original draft approval was approved in December 2009, and it consists of 5 blocks for industrial purposes, 1 block for highway commercial purposes, and 5 internal streets. Draft approval has since been extended in 2012 as well as 2015 and is scheduled to lapse on December 30th, 2017. The west portion of the subdivision east of Woodall Way was registered in January 2016. 2-year extensions are typically granted to ensure the applicant is actively working towards registration of the approved plan, as well as ensuring sufficient capacity of municipal services will exist to accommodate the proposed development. Accordingly, planning staff are satisfied that a 2-year extension would be appropriate for the approved draft plan of subdivision. In light of the foregoing, it's planning staff's planning staff recommend that draft plan approval be extended to December 31st, 2019. And a resolution from City Council in support of the request is necessary for the county to grant an extension.
Thank you. Questions of council? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries unanimous. And our next item, Councillor Shapton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council advise County Council that the city supports the application for draft approval of a proposed condominium submitted by CIREG 558 Durham Inc., file number CD 17-03-8, prepared by Brooks and Muir Surveying and dated October 24th, 2017, for lands described as Block 1, Plan M1 in the City of Woodstock, subject to the following conditions of draft plan approval, and there are 14 conditions.
Thank you. And the seconder, Councillor Accioni. Ms. Haschler.
Thank you. This application is for draft approval of a plan of condominium to facilitate the conversion of an existing apartment building from rental to condominium ownership, and it's located at lands municipally known as 558 Durham Crescent. All areas outside the individual units, including internal corridors, parking, landscaped areas, walkways, access lanes, open areas, and other outside elements will be held in common ownership. The subject property currently comprises approximately 1.89 acres and is occupied by an existing 6-story residential apartment building consisting of 22 one-bedroom apartment units and 24 two-bedroom units. The site also contains a total of 63 parking spaces and is currently zoned R3, which permits multi-unit residential uses. Approval of an application for draft plan of condominium generally involves a process similar to an application for draft plan of subdivision, where after appropriate circulation, a proposal receives draft approval, which is contingent on the applicant satisfying a number of conditions prior to final approval and registration. Planning staff are of the opinion that the proposal is consistent with the policies of the PPS, as the proposal will facilitate the creation of a different form of housing to meet the long-term social needs of current and future residents. While the average vacancy rate for 1 and 2 bedroom units are below the 3% standard, it's noted that the applicant has provided information regarding the potential affordability of the existing units that will be converted to condominium ownership. The applicant's analysis indicates that the conversion of the existing rental units to condominium ownership would result in similar total monthly costs as compared to the current rental rates charged. Further, using current income data from Woodstock, the 2016 census, it would appear that the cost of the ownership of the apartment units would fall well within the measure of affordability as set out in the official plan. The existing development appears to meet the relevant provisions of the R3 zone, and further considering the long-standing use of the property, planning staff are satisfied that sufficient parking is available to accommodate the existing use. In light of the foregoing, it's the opinion of planning staff that the application can be given favorable consideration. We would recommend that the 14 conditions be included.
Thank you. Questions of council? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is consideration of correspondence. Councillor Talbot.
I'll move that Woodstock City Council authorize the increase of free parking from 2 hours to 3 hours for the month of December 2017.
Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Petter. Discussion? Councillor Talbot.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a regular request that the BIA has every year for the Christmas season, so we hope that you will support it.
Further discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. Next item is Administrative Services, Statement of Revenue and Expenditures and Capital Expenditures ending October 31st. Councillor Lauder.
I'll move that Woodstock City Council receive the statement of revenue and expenditures and the statement of capital expenditures for the period ending October 31st, 2017 as information.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Accioni. Discussion? Councillor Shapton.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just wondering if Mrs. Hilderly can comment on if there's anything exciting happening or not. Thank you.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Shapton, no, I can assure you that things are going along smoothly and there's no blips or anything in the forecast. At this point in time, we should be at 83%, and for the most part, that's where the departments are, and I don't see anything of any concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. Next item on the agenda is the building bylaw. Councillor Petter.
I move that Woodstock City Council refer the building bylaw report to the bylaws section of the meeting.
Thank you. And the seconder, Councillor Shapton. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. Next item is the school zone policy. Councillor Accioni.
Moved by myself, the Woodstock City Council approve a school zone policy for the city of Woodstock.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Shapton. Discussion? Councillor Shapton.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is something that I've been waiting to come forward to council for quite some time and working through it with Mr. DeHaan. I'm thrilled to see the report, but I'm wondering if Mr. DeHaan could just speak to this and fill us into what's going on.
Your Worship, through the councillor, basically this is a report that'll set up a school zone around all public elementary and high schools, so that they're all treated consistently in terms of signage and traffic control, and also it will kind of set and clarify what other additional methods we may look at if necessary. What it is basically proposing is that the frontage of all public schools will automatically be a 40-kilometer-an-hour zone. No parking, no stopping in front of the schools, and as well as it wouldn't just be the frontage, but also about 150 meters out either side of it also. It also makes reference to our existing crossing guard policy and acknowledges that and reinforces that one. I think that pretty much kind of wraps up what our intent was on this one.
Thank you. Councillor Shapton.
Just continuing on, in the report, Mr. DeHaan, it indicates that potentially this could carry on over a 2-year plan. Is there any way to accelerate that, or if you could explain that as well?
Your Worship, through the councillor, me and the deputy city engineer who did most of the work on this, he researched a number of communities all across southern Ontario and kind of grabbed what he thought was the best of all of them. we had a discussion about that. That was kind of the worst case. I certainly don't think it would be near that far. It's certainly well within a year, I think. But originally, the 2 year went in there because that was kind of a worst case scenario.
Great, thank you very much, and I really appreciate the work on this. I think it's something that's long overdue in our community, and as we see our population grow, so does the traffic. So thanks for putting this together.
Thank you. Further questions of council? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. And our next report is from Cultural Services regarding public art policy. Councillor Lauder.
I'll move that Woodstock City Council approves the public art policy for the city of Woodstock.
Thank you. And the seconder, Councillor Shapton. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. And no special committees or notices of motion. The bylaws. Councillor Tate.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Accioni. Move that the following bylaws be given first and second reading. 9164-17, a bylaw to provide for the dedication, naming of parts of highways in the city of Woodstock. 9165-17, a bylaw to provide for the sale of certain lands owned by the corporation of the city of Woodstock to Nancy Skillings. And 9166-17, a bylaw to repeal and replace the city of Woodstock Municipal Code, Chapter 252, Building Bylaw.
Thank you. You've heard the motion. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. Councillor Tate.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Accioni, that the following bylaws be given third and final reading. 9164-17, 9165-17, 9166-17.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. And tonight we will start with Councillor Tate.
Yes, as most of us were in attendance today for the Thomas Black Memorial to the Highway, there was lots of discussion and comments about Constable Black, but I just want to make mention of his widow, who at the time had 3 young children she had to raise on her own. She did a fantastic job, and considering back 55 years ago, the police were not paid like they are today, and the benefits weren't there, and I'm sure there wasn't a pension or anything else at the time. I know one of her daughters very well. They've all done very well. She went into nursing. The grandchildren have done well, and it's, I think she should be recognized for what she had to go through. It was very traumatic, and they still relive it every year, and she's been able to do what she's done.
Thank you. Councillor Accioni.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I had the pleasure to attend this morning as well. And I just simply want to say, next time you're driving down Mill Street in 401, when you look at the sign, just think of the ultimate sacrifice he made trying to protect the city. Just keep that in your thoughts and prayers. And remember, we still have a police force that is out there doing the same job, and the same risks are involved today, and some might even think worse. So please respect that. Also was at the Woodstock and Area Small Business Center Awards Banquet today. Just wanted to say a quick congratulations, not only to the 3 winners, but to Rhonda and Tim and Christine. It was an excellent event, excellent meal. It was just a great event. I was quite impressed. Hopefully we'll see a lot of people Friday evening, tomorrow night, of course, at the lighting of the lights, and Saturday, Santa Claus Parade. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lauder.
Thank you. On November 24th, Woodstock Art Gallery is having their 7th annual 50/50 exhibition and sale of artworks by local and regional artists for purchase, and this is a free event. And so many things going on this weekend. It's down at Southgate. They're having their yearly bazaar, and the Oxford Create Art Expo is being held out at Cowan Park this weekend. Saturday from 10 till 4, and on Sunday from noon until 4, and this is also free, so there'll be lots of ideas for Christmas, and you can get some of your Christmas shopping done. Coats for kids. If you have any new or used coats or other winter apparel, please contact the Operation Sharing for a location to drop off your items to help the children and families in need. And hoping everyone will be at the parade on Saturday night, even though it might be raining. But we'll all enjoy anyhow. And I also was at the Small Business Awards this afternoon, and that was very interesting. It's the first time I'd been there, and I really appreciated hearing everything that was going on. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Petter.
It's not going to rain, Connie. Stop. Just a couple of quick things. A really good news story for the city of Woodstock. We have a curling team. For anybody that's into curling, you already know what I'm going to say, but for you people that aren't involved in curling, we have a potential for a team representing Woodstock, Ontario to go to the Winter Olympics in curling. In December the 2nd to the 10th, they will be in Ottawa. There's 9 teams competing. One team gets out and they will represent Canada at the Winter Olympics in, I want to say Sochi, is that right? No, Korea. It's in Korea, right? South Korea. This team, the second that plays on this team, Rachel Vink, I'm sure that people know that name. Her parents, Henry and Carol, own Woodstock Meadows Golf Course, of which is one of their major sponsors, as well as the golf school, the Tom Farlow and the golf school. The name is the Julie Tippin Rink. You'll see them on TSN for 8 days. They'll probably, TSN usually comes into town and does some sort of a video montage to show the city of Woodstock, so it's a really good news story for the city. I just want to get their names in. Julie Tippin, Chantel Duhame, Rachel Vank, Tess Robbie, and the coach is Barry Westrom from London. And they also picked up a 5th, for you people that know curling, they picked up Sherry Madaw to go with them, who's an extremely experienced curler, and she'll be helping them in that endeavor. December to the 2nd to the 10th, 8 days, Woodstock will be all over TSN. So I just wanted to make sure I got that in. One other quick sports thing, the Blue Jays Woodstock Day has been announced as April the 28th. Yep, 28th against the Texas Rangers. It's a 4 o'clock game, and I know the tickets aren't available yet. I think they'll probably come out in January or something. But mark that down on your calendar, April 28th. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shapton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just following up on Councillor Tate's comments regarding today's bridge ceremony. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be in attendance. I was at the Ontario Association of Police Service Boards training seminar in Toronto. And that being said, I've had the privilege to watch Marilyn Pearson put this information together in the history of Mr. Black and his career in policing, and to let all of those know it was also recorded. So for those that either for physical needs couldn't make it out to today's ceremony, it will be able to watch it. So I look forward to that. But also wanted to touch base down the similar lines of Remembrance Day, another absolutely incredible tribute to all those that gave the ultimate sacrifice. A huge crowd on Saturday, even though it was a little cool. The sun was shining, and it was quite incredible to see so many show up, and the veterans to sit there. The least that we can do is bear a little bit of cold for an hour, considering what they've been through. So thanks to all of those that continue to protect our freedoms today. We couldn't do this without you, and it's something that myself and my family, we don't take for granted. Also, it's the big holiday weekend in Woodstock, the lighting of the lights in the parade. But another event that I think I've spoken about quite often at council was the Arrest ALS for Geertzy event, which I mentioned about 3 weeks ago was quite a success. We had over 3,000 people show up. I was fortunate enough to be a part of the committee and attend the thank you dinner where we unveiled the check for Jason and Brandy, and in one day we managed to raise $184,000 for Jason and Brandy so that he can continue his treatment, and that does not include the GoFundMe page. So those funds were strictly raised for one day. We were a small committee but mighty, and it was quite an emotional moment when we presented them with that check. A family that's so deserving and is under what I would consider extreme circumstances with 2 beautiful young children. It put me back on my heels to make sure I understood that what should come first in a world where we can be bombarded with social media garbage, and what some may think is important really is spending time with your family, because those, you never know when that moment may strike. and you just don't have that option anymore. So congratulations to the committee, and I think it further enforces to me what can happen when so many communities come together. It wasn't just Woodstock. The Geertz family has so many reaching in Dorchester and Elmer and Belmont, but Woodstock obviously played a huge role in that. So thank you to all those, just an incredible amount of money to allow him to pursue his dreams and to stay around for a heck of a lot longer than what we were predicting. Other than that, though there's usually lots of seats available on November 21st for the capital budget meeting, so feel free to come out and sit in the gallery. It's open to the public. If you want to see how your tax dollars are spent, I would strongly encourage you to come out, and it's quite exciting, even though Mr. Creary doesn't make it quite as exciting as he could. Next year I'll have Brad Jansen do it, I hope, and spice it up a little bit, but it is quite an evening, and again, 5:15, usually until about 7, but depends on how long the presentations go. So thanks, and have a great couple weeks.
Thank you. Councillor Talbot.
Thank you, Your Worship. Unfortunately, I was unable to make the unveiling today for Constable Black for the signs and everything, but seeing as I was around then, but very, very young, and I do know the Black family, it's been long overdue, this tribute to him and the family, so I was pleased to see that. As been mentioned numerous times tonight about the lighting ceremony tomorrow night, which is just the kickoff of the holiday season. And I'm having the pleasure of hosting and commentating this year's Santa Claus Parade with Brad Jansen, and we're going to have our scripts laminated this year so that we can actually separate them when it's raining out, that we couldn't do the last time. So we have less and less coverage and ability, so if we're announcing the wrong float, it's not really our fault. But there's so many activities going on. I'm looking forward to the 50-50 next Friday night at the Art Gallery, so I can buy another new picture to hang in my hallway. It's always a great event as well. So lots to do. Check the calendars and get out and participate in the community.
Thank you. And we had a great annual celebration a few weeks ago for Indwell, which has been part of our community here with the repurposing of the former Harvey Woods. Of course, you've seen the expansion of that building recently and other initiatives such as the Blossom Park, which will be completely redeveloped and have much lower utility bills going forward for all of the tenants that will be there. So learn about Indwell, great people doing great things here in our community. I also had the privilege of being at a new PetSmart grand opening here in the city, and one thing that I've really been following since then, and I know my family was very impressed with, was the section for the adoptions from the Oxford Animal Rescue. And although we didn't come home with any more rescue kitties that day, I was very quickly able to show the picture children of some of the new families that went home with those pets, and the number of pets that have gone out the doors, just great. So if you know anyone who's looking for a fur baby, tell them to go into PetSmart, and Oxford Animal Rescue will really appreciate that. We had a really busy week last week with visits at schools for special remembrance ceremonies, the Armistice Dinner, of course, with the Legion, an annual event. Just really amazing seeing the young people today that are starting to take notice. It seems like it might have skipped a generation or two over the years, but as other councillors have mentioned at the cenotaph, what a great turnout on the Saturday. Now also during the week, I was able to meet with the developmental class from College Ave Secondary School here at the City of Woodstock. They had a really neat proposal for me. Now, talking with the class, we have residents from Princeton and Tillsonburg and Tempsford and Ingersoll, as well as Woodstock and Tavistock and Embro, all part of that program. And what really struck me was how all of their advice that they would like to see the city implement is all things that are being covered within Oxford County's sustainability plan right now, as we heard from our presenter Brian Smith earlier for Opal. And so look forward. I encourage them to do a little bit of a rejigging of some of the ideas and get to County Council as soon as they can. Now, we've had some meetings recently with some of the Japanese associations, as well as some of the local executives here in the city for the industry that we have, and that's all in advance of an Asian trade mission that our Southern Ontario Mayors Association will be heading out first thing tomorrow morning. We'll be touching base in China for several meetings there. The Premier of Ontario, as well as the Economic Development Delegation, will be there. Perhaps there will be some good announcements coming for our region out of China in the near future. When we leave China, we head to Japan for our regular biannual visit, which includes meetings with individuals that are looking at investing here in Ontario, as well as our existing relationships to continue to broaden those and also thank them for so many of the great contributions, such as last week the announcement of the sponsorship from TMMC Toyota for the dental clinic at the Oxford Area Community Health. And we know within the community, as you drive around and you take a look at so many of our great community partners, you can look at WDDS and see the Toyota wing for their expansion, and you see all the great ways that these partners give back to our community, and real bricks and mortar fashion like that, as well as the other programs where the staff get involved and volunteer their time and efforts, and things like our special events that are coming up, as well as the ones that we enjoyed in the summertime, making memories with the family and having fireworks sponsored by these local industries. So on behalf of all of the citizens of Woodstock, I will be there sharing great stories from the citizens about their direct involvement, and of course I will remind them about future sponsorship opportunities so that as we look at that capital budget and some of the future pressures we have, there's opportunities for them to help out with the city in an even bigger way. And with that, you'll see many of the councillors out and about over the next few weeks at all of these special events. So make sure you say hi and thank them for sitting here in council chambers, reading these reports and spending time trying to make decisions for the generations of the future. And with that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Shapton, seconded by Councillor Petter. All those in favor? We are adjourned.